So you started a brand new podcast. Should you or should you not have a separate Twitter account for that show? This is the question that we're going to be diving into today here on the Podcast Accelerator. I'm your host, Mark Asquith, CEO and co-founder of Rebel Base Media, where we make podcast technology, including Captivate.fm, the world's only growth-oriented podcast host. Go and start your podcast in the right way with the right team at Captivate.fm. Also, remember, we do free podcast coaching every single Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern, which is 4 p.m. UK time, every single Friday, over in our Facebook group. It's 30 minutes, unadulterated, complete freedom of podcast coaching with me and the Rebel Base Media team. Go and get that in your ears and eyes over at rebelbasemedia.io/free coaching. It's on a Facebook group. We don't even need your email address, all right? So come along to the free coaching. And before I get into today's episode, shout out to AWeber, who continually help me to refine and, of course, build my email relationships with my listeners. In fact, did you know every single one of the episodes this week has been derived from one of my podcast listeners? And it's fantastic to see that relationship building and friendships forming. And I put email marketing right at the center of that relationship management. So please, if you're a podcaster, go and do the same at markasquith.com/AWeber. So like I said, one of my epic listeners, Charlie Wyman, has just launched a brand new podcast. Congratulations. Round of applause. Woo. And she asked me over on Twitter whether or not I thought she should have a separate Twitter account for the show or not. So, which is it? Well, inevitably, it's a complex answer. And really, I see use cases for both. So what I want to do is, rather than just say, do this or don't do this, what I want to do is kind of talk through the pros and cons of having a separate account, all right? So I actually run both versions of this. So to be clear, the Podcast Accelerator does not have an account on Twitter or Instagram or indeed on Facebook. No, it's me at Mr. Asquith on all of the accounts. Rebel Base Media, of course, is the company. Captivate is the platform. Podcast Website is the platform. Podcast Success Academy. They all have their own little outlets, all right, on Twitter and Facebook and so on and so forth. However, Spark of Rebellion, my Star Wars show that I run with the main man Gaz, it does have its own Twitter account. Okay, so what's the difference? Well, the pros of having a Twitter account for your show. So the pros of having a separate Twitter account are that you can distance yourself. And I mean this in the most pleasant way. I don't mean it in a nefarious way or even a mischievous way. It's distancing for the right reasons. Let's say that you work in one specific area, but you podcast about something that is either conflicting or you podcast in something that you don't want to be necessarily represented on your personal timeline. In that case, separation is perfect. That's why, I mean, hell, I run a bloody company called Rebel Base Media. It's very clear that I like Star Wars. But the point is that for Spark of Rebellion, because we have that separate, one of the big pros is that no one knows whether it's me or Gaz tweeting. I don't have to do all the work on it. Gaz doesn't have to do all the work on it. In fact, what we tend to find is that it's actually really nicely split between the pair of us. And the cool thing with this is that let's assume, I'm not saying that we ever will, but let's assume that we build a team. Someone can manage it. Let's assume that we build the brand to be huge. We can sell it, and it comes as part of the IP that we own is the Twitter account, the Twitter following, and so on and so forth. So that's a really strong pro for having a separate account. A con for having a separate account on Twitter for your podcast is that, well, you're building two followings. Not only, in fact, are you building two followings, but you're actually building a pile of extra work. You know, you have to do something around managing this. You've got to create content for it. And a lot of podcasters get lazy and just post stuff on Twitter about their podcast. But we all know that Twitter's a conversational medium. That's how things grow. That's how you build your audience on Twitter, is by conversing and becoming friends and building networks and relationships with people on Twitter. It's very difficult to do that if you're running 2 or 3 different accounts. So in my view, if you want an audience that you can take with you wherever you go, so you change niche, you change options, you pivot. If you build a personal audience, not only are you going to be able to interact with people more, and you're only managing one account, so it's easier, but you're also building your personal brand, the brand of Charlie, the brand of you doing what you do and doing it in your unique and highly impassioned way. That means that when you add other strings to your bow, that audience sees it too, and that audience follows you. Now, that's why I do my own personal tweets. That's why I don't have an accelerator Twitter. That's why, really, we don't do much from Rebel-based media, because Rebel-based media is Kieran and I. It's he and I. Yes, there's a team for every product, but we're Rebel-based media. And the ability for us to be able to say, hey, look, Productivity exists or Captivate exists. We don't have to build separate followings for that. So we can use our audience and the goodwill that we've built with them to say, hey, look, here's a new thing. All that other stuff that I've done in the past, all that real high quality stuff I've done, the trust that I built then, you see me deliver really good products. Well, guess what? There's a new product that's going to have the same kind of ethics behind it. And people use that and they really, really like that. So in my view, Charlie, what I would suggest you do is, if it's something that is distinctly different to what you do in your personal tweets, have a separate feed, but be able to dedicate time to it. Only dedicate time to it if you really can properly dedicate time to it. So only create a Twitter feed for your podcast if you can. Give it the time of day. If you can use it for interaction as well as publishing. And if you think in the future you may either sell the thing or get someone to manage it for you. Okay? If you don't want to do any of those, and if your goal is to continue to build your personal brand and for it to be Charlie, then in that case, I would stick to your own Twitter account. Now, there is one caveat with that. What I would suggest you potentially do, and I always do this, get the Twitter accounts that are closely associated with your podcast, register them. Don't necessarily use them. But even if you don't use them, you want to stop other people being able to maybe infringe on a trademark or infringe on your brand, okay? So register them and either leave them dormant, just don't do anything with them, or, just like domain names, redirect them. Put a pinned tweet, stick a logo in there, stick a description in there, but put a pinned tweet at the top that says, hey, this is not the account for this. We've got it, it's us, but look, I tweet from Charlie_Wyman, all right? So that's what I would say there is just it depends on what you want to do with your show. All right. So to summarize, if you want to scale a podcast, potentially sell it and be able to remove yourself from it in the future, create a separate one, but make sure you can dedicate the right time to interacting, not just publishing. If you want to make sure your personal brand is the thing that grows, or if you never envisage selling it, or if you want to take your audience with you wherever you go, stick to your personal account. All right. So I hope that helps. Thank you for being a Captivate user. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for the kind words and the following that you give and the reactions and the interactions that we have over on Twitter. I really appreciate it, Charlie, and best of luck with the new podcast. It's going to be an absolute hit. I've got absolutely no doubt at all. So listen, thank you to everyone else that's tuned in. This has been a private conversation broadcast to the world between Charlie and I. So thank you very much, Charlie. And to everyone else listening, always a pleasure. Come down to the free coaching on Friday at rebelbasedmedia.io/free coaching. Until the next time, never ever forget, the more you expect from yourself, the more you will excel. Laters.